In this episode, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to use your podcast to build, develop, and launch an online course. Stay tuned.
This is the Podcast in the Rough. Tune in every Friday for new adventurous episodes.
Welcome to the Podcast in the Rough. I'm your host, Zebulon Thomas. This is episode 118, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about how to develop, introduce, and launch an online course using your podcast. This is something I've done several times. I've helped entrepreneurs do this several times, and we've had great success doing it. And I'll get more into this in later episodes, depending on what kind of feedback I get from this episode. So please do let me know in the comments below as we get into this if you would like me to continue to share more of this inside the podcast. And if I see there is a demand for this, I will build out a fully detailed outline course and launch the Inside My Buy Me a Coffee. So make sure you've checked that out and you've become a member to show your support and get involved in the podcast that way. A lot of premium content there. Some of the more effective things you can use your podcast for is launching new products, services, or even just social media platforms. For instance, if you're growing your podcast and you haven't dived into YouTube just yet, get a following on your podcast, build a small little tight community, and then introduce, hey, we're going to be putting this on YouTube, and I would love for you to be a part of this journey and watch us grow into YouTube. So that way, when you launch this platform, when you launch onto YouTube or another social media outlet like Instagram or in a Facebook group, your community will travel over there and show the support. So it's a lot easier to grow it when you've already had some traction. That same concept applies to online courses. For instance, there's a gentleman that we started growing a YouTube channel, and after 6 months, we started to introduce the concept of a course that we were going to be launching. And we wanted everyone to be a part of that. And after a while, we started putting some feelers out to find out if people would be interested in learning more in-depth one-on-one with this gentleman, and which we did get a lot of great feedback. And so then we said, why don't we go a step further and start to build a course? By 3 months in, we had already had a course pretty much outlined. And we started to put those feelers out there, find out what the feedback was on the YouTube channel, in the comments, in the community tab. And from there, we realized that we had something. And so we went ahead and finalized this course and built it out. We had it all ready to go. And then at the 6 months mark, we started to introduce parts of this course as a test in a beta group to the subscribers on the YouTube channel. And what we did is we said, hey, we have this course that we're building. We want you to be more involved. We'd love your feedback. Could you test this out? We're going to show you an example of this on YouTube. I'm going to run a whole live stream and go over the whole details, and that's what we did. And then we introduced a Facebook group, a private Facebook group during that live stream that the ones that wanted to beta test this course would sign up for and get it absolutely free. This gave us the feedback and the leverage we needed to kind of build the course and shape it to fit everybody's challenges, needs, and take on some recommendations that would help better the course. That lasted a few weeks. We had a great test group, and then we went ahead and said, hey, we're going to be launching the course officially on this platform. We used a site called Kajabi, and we gave a lot of the people that were in the test group the opportunity to have affiliate links to share this. They also got discounted rates. And then from there, we hit the YouTube channel very strong with an open pitch and let them know, hey, this is now available. You helped us build this course out. It's going to add so much value to you. And because we already had the rapport, we had the subscriber base, everybody was a hot lead. They were ready to go. And they jumped into this course because they knew the value it brought. And a lot of people were already asking for the ability to work one-on-one with this gentleman or to get more insight on how to help them invest their stocks and learn more about the stock market. And we had great success, and we sold this thing out over the course of 3 days. And without getting into too much detail about how you structure courses, we did an open and close course. So you open the doors for a little bit, let people come in, close the doors, do the training, and then we leave it offline for a couple months. And then we introduce it again and bring it back. So we keep this process going to build up momentum, to build the demand, to get people to know that this is something you want to take action now. It's not always going to be available. And it's a small niche. These breaks in between launching the course gave the team and I some time to strategize and reach out to the members that took the course, the students, and get their feedback and get some quality reviews. From there, we built those reviews into social buckets, and that became our social proofing for this course, for this business, for this brand that we were building. And over the course of a year, we had this whole thing from $0 to $1 million. Now, this is something that we hit on a grand scale. It wasn't something we just did locally. We definitely had people from all over the world. We had a really great community. And the entrepreneur that was involved was really, really good at what he did. And he had great track record of success. And he was a very well-educated person that knew how to teach and educate others. So it was a win-win. I've also had a few people that I've helped launch courses, some stay-at-home mom and dads, some entrepreneurs that were just getting started, some young entrepreneurs at that were able to generate a few $1,000s a month from their course. And they've grown those courses to the point where they're making an extra $50,000 to $60,000 a year. Some of them can totally just fall back on this, but they're smart about it and they don't use it as their main source of income. It is just almost a low-hanging fruit. And we call that evergreen because we launched the course once and a lot of this is just automated where it's there and it's up on a platform like Kajabi and or Thinkific. And all you have to do is promote it and then manage the students as they come in and answer the questions and be a part of it, get involved. So if this is something that you are interested in doing, please, again, comment below and let me know because I would love to build out something for you to learn how to leverage your podcast that will help you grow. And listen, I've talked about it in the past, podcasting can leverage so many things, especially with business. And if you're not using podcasts for business, you're missing out on a lot of opportunity, not just money, massive opportunity, connections, sponsors, building communities, getting that social proof that you need to last long term. These are things that are very important to a business that a lot of people just neglect or they think they can't do it because they don't know how, or they feel that it costs them a lot of money when really it doesn't. It just takes time. The most valuable resource you have, it just takes that time. And so you can decide if you want to do it yourself and lose some of that time, use the time that you can't get back, or if you're going to spend some of that capital that you have on the side and put your marketing dollars to work for you so you don't have to waste that time and let someone professional come in and do that. Or someone who's hungry for that opportunity, allow them to grow in that space and build your business up using the podcast. Podcasting doesn't have to take a long time. Just like right now, this week has been super busy for me. But I said, you know what? I have to jump on this. I want to do it. I didn't get to do it last week because I was completely swamped. But I didn't stress it. It's okay to take breaks. But I definitely didn't want to leave you guys hanging without an episode. So I knew that this was an episode I wanted to do, and I didn't want to feel that rushed to be able to put this on. I wanted to give you some quality. So that's why we're here today, talking about using your podcast to build a course. So what does that look like for you? Here's my recommendations. You have this podcast. You build this community by talking about the things that are in your life. You open up, you get a little more transparent. You talk about the things in your day or in your week. And if it's something you're doing for podcasts, let them know what's going on behind the scenes, right? All the while you're doing this, you're thinking about what can I offer to my listeners? What percent of my listeners might be interested in moving forward in a financial investment into what I'm doing? How many of my listeners in this community are willing to go to bat for me and promote what we're doing and want to be a part of this project? So that could be something as I'm building my business or I'm expanding my business or I'm moving my business from a brick and mortar to an online. And that looks something like maybe we do art and paintings and we're going to be doing art and paintings online and we're going to do online courses. Maybe it's a fitness gym and you realize that the overhead is just too much and you can make more money online. Or maybe you have the fitness gym or you're a yoga instructor and you're missing out on all the online money that you could be making by doing a virtual class or a training session or a fitness program or launching an app. So it doesn't have to just be an online course. It could be an opportunity to launch something else. So what you do is you write all your ideas down and you figure out where you want to start to pitch this. So if you're doing your podcast for a while, maybe you've already been doing it for a couple months. If you're just starting out, I definitely wouldn't start with this pitch. I would build out for a couple months and let them know transparently, hey, I have some ideas I'm going to share with my community on here as I grow. Stay tuned, subscribe so you could be a part of this experience that I'm trying to build for myself and for everybody else. Stay tuned. And you start to slowly introduce this with every episode. That's what I did at the very beginning of my podcast, except for mine was chasing bigger clients and opportunities and sharing my feedback and trying to figure out how to, life-work balance. And so that worked out really well because a lot of people, especially because it went into the pandemic and I was still able to connect with my listeners even more on a deeper level during the pandemic and explain kind of what I was doing to not just to survive, but to thrive and take advantage of opportunity that may or may not have shown itself, in which I did. I had one of the most successful, profitable times of my career happen during the pandemic, which slingshotted me because the world was in a mess and I figured, where's the need? Where's the demand? What can I do to help? How can I serve? And I just got hungry for it and put myself everywhere I could because that was the best time to do that because I had no real, everybody was leveled, right? Like everybody was like taking a back seat. So with your podcast, if you're starting to build a course, or let's just use the gym as an example. Say you're a yoga instructor. Hey, I'm having a great time at this yoga gym. I've been wanting to expand into online and I want to get your guys' feedback. Leave me some comments on maybe what you would like to see in an online yoga training course from me. And then you could say, what are some of the courses that you've taken that you enjoyed? What did you like about them? What did you not like about them? This feedback will also help you make your course even better, or your online experience, or that training you're going to offer. So then what I would do is I would say, hey, if you're interested in this, I know you're part of this podcast, but if you haven't yet subscribed to my mailing list, this is where I'm going to be sharing a lot of my journey behind the scenes. So if you want to get access to that information, please join my mailing list. That might be one way you could do it. And you could use something like MailChimp to do that. And listen, I just want to say this, the purpose of growing a mailing list is so you have another form of contact with your prospects that's even more solid, because you might not be able to reach them all the time online. Your content might be buried by the algorithm or a lot of other people's posts and they might not see it. And DMs don't always work. So a mailing list is still pretty solid. So you can also trick out this mailing list to make it look really exciting, and you can have an email campaign that they will enjoy as well. Again, you want to choose platforms that you can create an experience, not just give them information. What can you spice it up with? What kind of graphics? What kind of plugins can you put on this? Can you send audio or photos or videos or a PDF? You want that opportunity so that you can create that experience for your prospects, your listeners, your community to enjoy and give you the feedback. So some of the things I would do with the mailing list is then when you're sharing the information about, hey, I just had a meeting with so-and-so today that talked about how to get started with my online course, or I met with a tech company to talk about the app, or I got a life coach and they're helping me build this business out. And you tell that experience in your mailing list. Now your community that listens to you on your podcast, they're getting a little bit of that. You're sharing that on the podcast, but they're also getting even more of a deep dive through the mailing list. And you keep encouraging that. And so what you're doing is you're building more rapport. You're building that community of diehard raving fans and followers and people that want to go to bat for you. And also some of your listeners will become prospects, or they'll become affiliates, and they might even become part of your team at some point. But the whole process is being transparent on a podcast and letting them know that they could be part of this journey and help you build out this course or this app or this new endeavor for your business. And they're going to feel very special about that. And that's why I have buymeacoffee.com/in the rough, because I wanted to not just utilize that platform to give you premium content, but also utilize it to give you free content, to have more of a membership opportunity, to allow people to say, hey, you know what? I really love this guy's podcast. I think it's really exciting. I just want to show my gratitude and support and financially support this podcast in some way. It gives people that opportunity to do that. Or if they want to get more involved, they get that shout out, or they get that exclusive premium content, and they get those opportunities. So you can build that out. And you can use other funding sites or support sites like, a Patreon, which is really good. Or if you want to spend a little bit more and invest bigger, that's where you go into something like Kajabi. And I bring Kajabi up not because I'm not an affiliate or I'm not promoting them in any way, but I will say that my experience with Kajabi has been pleasant. I feel it's very solid. There's only a few things I don't like about it, but they've improved so much over the years that I think some of those things that I had an issue with early on are no longer a problem. But other than that, nothing was not functional. Nothing was not effective. Everything was so good and solid. So, if you have the funding for that, that is some way to go, especially when you're growing an online course and you have the prospects there and there's money being generated. It's a no-brainer to move into Kajabi. It's very solid. But some of these platforms will get you, especially something like a Patreon or a Kajabi, is that you build your whole thing online there, or like a ClickFunnels. You build everything on these sites. And if you're not careful and you forget to do the backup build, then if you leave, you lose it all, right? So I always build out my courses offline and online. So maybe you don't have the website offline, but you have all the banners and all the content that makes that web page and all the copy. Everything is there so that, you make it look all nice and neat on a Kajabi or a ClickFunnels or a Patreon. And then if rules change or there's some politics in the business that you don't agree with, then you can leave that platform, but you still have everything you've been building offline. And you just then have to spend a few hours repositioning it on a new platform to make it look just as good and connect the features, if you will. Kajabi's a little more in depth, but we'll get into that. This is, again, I'm sharing this because if you're really interested in starting an online course or having a conversation about what you could do, again, there's options on my buymeacoffee.com/in-the-rough that you can ask me about or get involved in that I can also help you. And if there's demand and everyone's in the comments below talking about, yes, please share more about this online and how we can use your podcast to build an online course, then I'll go ahead and build some micro stuff for you guys and really just let's kick it out the park. And this is the best time to do this because we're moving into the end of the year, the third and fourth quarter here. And what you want to do is ramp up really hard right now. And if you have a course you want to launch, it's going to be amazing to be able to do that first quarter of the next year. So you don't want to miss that little bubble because that is a huge opportunity. Trust me, I know the seasons of courses and you definitely want to launch the first quarter of the year, but you want to have all your things together and your course finalized and tested in these months ending this quarter and then this year. So don't miss this opportunity. It's a great opportunity for you. So listen, you're building out your podcast, you're growing your business, you're being transparent, you're slowly building this community, you're actively asking people subscribe. Hopefully you're running around your community or wherever you go with a shirt or a flyer or a business card saying, hey, I have a podcast. Maybe even changed a lot of your social media links and included your podcast there. Or if you have not yet updated your bio, even on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, put in there podcast host or host of the blank podcast, right? And you share that constantly. Even go as far as changing your Facebook, your personal Facebook banner to have some kind of branding of your podcast. And the reason I say this is because more people are going to be open to listening to you and subscribing to your podcast and then jumping over to the multiple social media outlets that you may have attached to it and consume your content that way. And it's a slow, nice, steady, organic grow. And then from there, you can then openly pitch inside your podcast without being too salesy. It's really exciting. I mean, you hear if you go back and listen to any of my episodes, I'm constantly throwing out opportunities and pitches and I'm selling something, but at the same time, it's open for if you want it, there it is. If you don't, you can move on. But I'm giving you massive value around those pitches. I had someone say, oh, hey, this ad, our viewership and everybody fell off when the ad hit. That's not true. That's not the case. It falls off because of people's retention. If you weren't interesting enough and gave enough value at the very beginning of your podcast, by time that commercial break pops in, that sponsored spot, then they will leave. But if you have something solid and it's doing really, really well, they will wait through that. Now, there's another factor here. If your ad is really, really good, they will then be excited about the ad because podcast listeners are way more likely to listen to an ad on a podcast than they are on YouTube or any other platform. So if your ad is exciting and engaging and also kind of blends in and matches with the topics of conversation and, represent what your podcast is about, if it fits in there, that's why you got to choose quality sponsorships or choose quality plugs, then they will continue on and it won't seem like a break. It'll just seem like some added value. And also quality. Quality is very important. If your quality is supreme and you get into the break, the commercial, and it's not supreme and the quality's horrible, they'll leave or just irritate them and it will just mess up the vibe. You ever watch a good show and a commercial comes on or you're watching something and an ad's right in the middle of it and it really just disrupts the feeling that you're in? You don't want to disrupt the feeling. It's one thing to have an ad where it's like, the whole video wasn't interesting and the ad just reminded you, hey, I should move on and not waste time with this. But it's another thing where you're really into something and then the ad comes out and it disrupts and, makes you disassociate and disconnect from what you were involved in. that's a bad ad. So again, you want to make sure that your advertisements are just as strong as your podcast. So listen, with podcasting, you're always growing and learning. So hopefully you're listening to your last episode over and over again going, how can I improve this? We've already obsessed over the sound quality or the mics or the EQ, and we got it just right? And if you're doing video, you got the lighting just right. Now it's like, how do we improve that? How do we create more of an experience and become this personality host, this podcast host that everyone loves, the voice, the image, and just how we make them feel when they listen to us? And that's also, and this is where I'm going to plug, and that's also where mixing your voice with an EQ is so important and key, because if you can get your radio voice out of you and make it sound so good, everybody's going to enjoy listening to you. And some of the things that really destroy a podcast is if it's all bit rate changing, it sounds like a tin can. If there's a lot of reverb from the room, and that's not giving you the environment that you want them to be in. You want to be right in their ear. And also some of the other things is when they're listening to you on a phone and then maybe they switch over to a TV or to the car stereo or a radio, when they listen to the podcast on different outlets, how does it change? In a car, you might come off more bass. So if you haven't equalized your voice and mixed and mastered your vocals, the bass is going to be too intense. Or maybe it's the highs. They're just too high, especially when you switch over to listening to a podcast on a television or on your phone, right? You might come off too pitchy. That's why I've obsessed for the months to build out my EQ to make my voice sound the way it is. This is my voice at its most purest natural state. And it is enhanced, but yet it's stripped away of all the ambient noise or the room reverbs, and it's also balancing out my lows and my highs so they're right in the middle no matter what you listen to me on. And if you would like access to this specific EQ that I've built, you can get access to that right now by going over to buymeacoffee.com/intherough. And you'll find that there is a PDF in the extras, whether you're a member or not, you can get access to this EQ. And if you'd like, you can go all the way back to my earlier episodes of the season 3 here, and you can find the whole special that I did about all the different microphones and testing this EQ with each one of these microphones to give you an idea of what you might sound like and which ones to choose. So definitely take a moment and check that out. I also talked a lot about this in my podcast community mastermind Facebook group. And you can access that group by going to thepodcastintherough.com/learn. So don't miss these opportunities. So again, think about all of these qualities and these settings and the setup and the layout and the presentation for when you start to grow this podcast, grow your business, launch an online course, build that community. All of this can be structured and strategized so that it's very organic. It flows with your lifestyle, your workflow, your business, your community, and everything is the way you want it. And so this is a great opportunity, and I highly recommend using your podcast right now to dabble in the online course space. And again, there's lots of opportunity out there. There's plenty of platforms that I can talk about if you guys are interested to tell you, hey, you can use this platform. It costs this much money, and this is the benefit and the value you'll get back. This is where you need to be ready for that endeavor. Or you're starting out free. Here is my recommended free outlets to launch an online course. So I can share that information with you. Again, let me know in the comments if that's something you want, and I'll build this out. Other than that, please make sure that you're thinking and challenging yourself to grow your podcast and to find things to plug into it that adds massive value to your listeners, allows you to grow that community, and allows you to capitalize on low-hanging fruit and build an empire, a business, a structure that will feed you and your family for years to come. That is something that is fun and enjoyable for everybody. We don't want to live a mundane life. We want to create an exciting, adventurous life. And you just have to think outside the box and go after what it is and make it a must. You have to obsess over that, and you will achieve it. But it can't happen if you don't have a vision. So create the vision. Where do you want to go? And start to go in that direction. So tune in next week for another episode of the Podcast in the Rough.
This is the Podcast in the Rough.